Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Games for Change board member Eva Zeider.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for being here. This is an exciting year for Games for Change, and we're thrilled to be partnering with Tribeca Film Festival. It's a great opportunity to bring together storytellers from the world of games and storytellers from the world of film. And on that note, I'd like to introduce to you John Patrikoff, who is the President and Chief Operating Officer of Tribeca Enterprises. Let's give John a warm welcome.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here today in honor of this new partnership between the Tribeca Film Festival and Games for Change. We couldn't be more excited to bring together the worlds of film and games. I'm also happy to be here to present the first ever Games for Change pitch event and to bring together top funders and experts from the US government, the gaming industry, BAFTA, the public sector, as well as private investors. I think today's event demonstrates the wide and diverse positive impact that games can have, as well as the commercial potential. I want to welcome to the stage the host of the event, guru game designer and NYU Game Center professor, Eric Zimmerman.
Hey, John, thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks for the introduction. We're really happy to be here with Tribeca Film. I guess as the ascendant media form of the 21st century, we won't forget you guys.
Thanks very much.
Hope you enjoyed the 20th century. All right, now, that was a little meta joke there. So welcome everybody to the pitch session. This is something that we like to do at Games for Change every year. Give game developers who are working on exciting games for change an opportunity to present their work to an audience, to a set of judges, to get feedback, to practice pitching, get some exposure, and hopefully make an exciting event for everyone. So today we have 4 amazing games that are going to be presented here, but before we bring out our pitchers, we need to bring out our judges. So let's have our judges up on stage. Help me welcome them to the stage, bring them out. Okay, come on out, judges. Yeah. All right, so we are welcoming in no particular order Phil Ashcroft from BAFTA LA. Phil, wave to the audience. Thank you. Itzik Ben-Bassat, angel investor. You may have to turn around in your chair. Itzik, you want to let everybody know who you are? Excellent. Michelle Byrd, former co-founder, or co-president, rather, of Games for Change. Greg Kieser from the Robin Hood Foundation. Thank you, Greg. Tom Giardino from Valve Corporation. Mark Ruppel from the National Endowment for the Humanities. And Kem Weber from Zynga.org. Yeah, thank you very much. Yes. Also, just want to tell them that they're facing backwards, the audience. I don't know if they're aware of that. It's very rude. Anyone ever tell you that your parents want to see your faces when you go up on stage for the school pageant? No, our judges are sitting backwards because we have a sort of, reality-style show, game show event here for you. They have to be able to see the presenters that are going to be coming out. So we do have a pretty amazing star-studded set of judges. I think when you hear names like BAFTA, National Endowment for the Humanities, Robin Hood Foundation, Valve, Zynga, it's a really amazing range of people coming from angel investing, like Itzik Ben-Bassat, to Michelle, who used to run Games for Change. So it's a really great group. We're really excited for them to be here. Now, what's actually happened to bring our presenters to this point was that we actually had a pretty intense competition. I was told that the number of submissions tripled from last year in terms of the number of developers wanting to present at the pitch session. So it was actually a very competitive process. Now, what they're competing for, that they're going to win, are actually is a lunch date with the judge of their choice. So we're doing a little matchmaking here. We're doing a little, maybe this is actually sort of a dating show, if you think about it that way. That's what they're going to be competing for. But without further ado, let's get to our first presenter. Let's bring out from representing CyberRun, Ailea Sneller and Sam Liberty. Thank you. Let's welcome them to the stage. All right.
Good afternoon. My name is Ailea Sneller from FHI 360.
And I'm Sam Liberty from the Engagement Game Lab.
And we're here to tell you about our game, CyberRun. Lika is an activist in a country where internet users are under constant threat. Hackers, malware, and even her own government make getting online safely a constant struggle. Firewalls prevent her from telling the story of the protests in her country to an international audience, and surveillance by cybercriminals is putting her at risk of theft or worse. But weeks of training to learn the complex architecture of virtual private networks or details of data encryption would be expensive, time-consuming, and potentially dangerous. She needs a way to protect herself, get messages to her friends in a dangerous environment, and tell the world her story. What if there were a way to put the knowledge that she needs directly into her hands? Lika's life isn't a game, it's the real world. But with a game called CyberRun, we propose to give internet users and activists like her exactly the tools they need to more safely connect to the digital world. We can put the knowledge they're missing right into their pockets.
So CyberRun is a physics-based mobile game in the vein of Where's the Water or Cut the Rope, where players have to create the safest, fastest, and most creative path for the game's main character, Data Dima, to deliver important information across the web. The mechanics are simple. Players just draw and tap on the screen to lay down internet architecture and various power-ups like VPNs, proxy servers, and firewalls to make the best possible path for Dima to reach her target destination. The player sees the level, she sees the challenges, and it's up to her to figure out the best way to build and navigate that path. So she might see a monitor and say, oh, I have a VPN that can turn me invisible. Or maybe there's hackers and she can put down a firewall in order to build up enough energy to actually break through. All of this is to abstractly teach how the internet works, how various threats that she might encounter, and how she might try to get around those threats, to bring her ideas to the world. It starts out simple, but as she masters these techniques, she's able to combine them in remarkably creative ways to push, pull, bounce, and transport Data Dima to her end goal, ultimately building a resilient, safe, and robust internet connection. The game also teaches some specific real-world skills. Before each level starts, the player has to survive a cyber attack where her display, her phone display, whether it's an iOS device, Android, whatever, is simulated in the game world. The effect of this is that the enemy is hacking your phone, trying to prevent you from reaching your goal. To survive the attack, you have to configure simulated privacy settings, set up simulated VPNs, or take other protective actions while your display seems to warp and melt right in your hand. This teaches real-life cyber hygiene in addition to the systemic knowledge gained through the physics puzzles.
As a player like Lika levels up and solves the game's puzzles, she's learning critical concepts of internet architecture, data vulnerability and protection, and learning how to keep her digital information secure, all in the immersive, apolitical, fun format of a digital puzzle game. With her new knowledge, gained by playing CyberRun for 10 minutes at a time while riding on the bus or waiting in line at the store, Lika's more able to safely connect with a world that wants to hear her story. CyberRun puts the power of internet safety directly into her pocket. We'd like to make this game a reality for more than 2 billion internet users worldwide, so many of whom struggle to protect themselves from online harm and connect more safely with a world that wants to hear their stories. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. So now the purpose of this session is not just to hear the pitches from the presenters, but it's a little bit of a master class too, right? Like a music master class. There might be a violinist learning a new piece, and then there's a music teacher there. It's sort of like a live lesson. The audience gets to hear feedback, critical responses, what's working, what's not working. So we're going to have a little discussion after each presentation where the judges get to ask questions of the presenters. Now, I've prepped them that in my world, in other words, on the planet where I live, thoughtful criticism is the highest form of respect. So I've asked the judges not to hold back, to really ask tough questions, to be critical if they want to disagree with each other, and hopefully we'll have a good discussion. So are there any judges that want to ask some questions to kick things off? Yes. Phil.
Hello. I loved it. I thought it was a great idea. Can I ask, have you considered it from the other angle of playing as a hacker?
I think some of the game mechanics will work to teach somebody in the role of a hacker how a hacker would work on their system, but Sam might be able to answer that better than I could.
Yeah, I think the spirit of the game, we definitely want it to be empowering to the people that use it, so they can feel like they're kind of combating people that are trying to stop them through whatever means is necessary for that person. So as they develop their toolkit, various things can come into play there.
All right, so it's definitely a white hat rather than a black hat scenario here. Other questions? Might be about feasibility, business model, anything.
Sure. I have a question. If, let's say this starts getting used in another country where they're having problems, say Turkey, and 100 people are using it, 6 months later, the government suddenly turns off Twitter. Do you think this would help them get to an internet connection where Twitter could be used, or to circumvent those types of governmental controls?
Sure, I think the game can be useful for any internet user, but we designed it specifically in mind for people who are in internet restrictive environments and need to learn how connections work or don't work in order to find alternative ways to access the web.
Let me follow up with that. So you said it's an abstract model. So how much of it is a sort of survival guide? How much of it is actual real-world information? How much is it a kind of general understanding of how the internet works? I think that's what some of the questions are getting at.
Well, first we want to make the game fun. So it's not so fun to learn the details of virtual private networks, but we can teach basic concepts through a fun game mechanic. Do you want to explain?
Yeah, it's existing in a system. I think like abstract is a useful thing for people to start out with. They see how the different elements interact. They learn what works and what doesn't, and then the cyber attack portion is how we can sneak in some real-world skills that develop good cyber hygiene practices. So it's a split. The primary aid is helping people figure out actually how all this works in a general sense that most people don't have an understanding of, and then the real-world skills come in between levels.
Michelle?
Quick question, 2 quick questions. Your target audience, again, age, roughly?
There's no real age limit. It's for anyone that wants to be more active, to learn these skills. Certainly plenty of adults can use it. I guess the same market that Cut the Rope would be for.
So how are you going to market the game? I'm just curious.
Take that.
When we began researching the idea for the game, we actually put together a fairly sophisticated marketing plan. Because we do target users that are potentially in restrictive environments, we can't be terribly overt about a lot of the details of what the game teaches. So the marketing would essentially be a really fun digital puzzle game like Angry Birds that you can play here and there for a few minutes at a time, and that's going to make your life a little happier. But at the same time, I don't think it would take a great deal of instruction to let folks know that they're actually learning really critical skills and concepts at the same time. So it would be marketed similar to what an Angry Birds or a Cut the Rope would be marketed, but potentially with an emphasis on different audiences around the world.
Ken from Zynga.
Hey guys. Have you thought about whether or not the act of playing this game or of playing this game and trying some of its teachings in the real world might actually diminish your cyber freedom and in some cases may be even more dangerous? Or do the pros outweigh the cons?
Well, how do you mean, Tom? Sorry. Ken.
In some environments, the act of playing this game or the act of doing things in the real world that you've learned in this game could end up putting you on a list or having your ability to move freely in a system compromised. So there's a negative consequence there. And in some environments, there may be potentially even more dire consequences. That's something you guys have thought about, or does that sort of go beyond the responsibility of the project?
Yeah,
Great question.
We've actually thought about this a lot, and the power of it being a game in the first place allows it to slip under the radar. A lot of people that are going to be downloading this onto their devices are doing it through back channels in the first place, just because of the environment that they're in. So where for a typical NPO to kind of reach out to these people and build democracy and build skills, To offer a class or something like that would be extremely overt and easy to target, but this is a little more stealthy. But we also made it a focus to make sure that you could download the game and then never have to connect to the internet again to get the full impact of it. So we don't want people putting themselves at risk. It runs off your OS just like any other app.
Okay, did we have one final question from Mark? Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that there's a little bit of a danger in kind of treading the line between building a vocabulary, building a lexicon for doing this, and then also kind of hoping that there's some skills that would be imprinted there. And this is building on what Ken said there too, is in that you know, you're asking people to kind of move through back channels in order to download this, but in the same sense, you're teaching them the skills to move through back channels. And that's a bit of a really difficult gray area to navigate. And I'm just curious whether, you know, you've thought through that in a way that, as Ken notes, that if you don't really teach these skills in a way that are really transferable and really applicable, there's some real danger involved with this. And that's my concern as well.
Okay, I think that's a great, and thank you, judges, for that incisive set of questions. Let's thank the, actually, why don't you hold on to that? Let's thank the CyberRun team for coming. And thank you, guys. We'll be seeing you at the end of the session. Megan Ventura, my spunky accomplice, is here on stage. Now, the judges are actually filling out real scorecards. That gives this whole thing a semblance of some kind of legitimacy, which may or may not be true. So Megan is gonna go by and pick up the scorecards for CyberRun one by one. And while she's doing that, let's welcome to the stage the Erin Reynolds, who's going to be telling us about Nevermind. Erin, thank you. Oh. And Erin, who is your spunky accomplice, who was not on my list?
This is Charlie Price.
Okay, Erin and Charlie, thank you guys. Take it away whenever you're ready.
I think we need a mic. Perfect. All problems solved. Thank you. All right. Hello, I'm Erin Reynolds. I'm the creator of Nevermind, and this is Charlie Price, our business development advisor. He's also going to be our slide caddy for today, so thank you, Charlie. Nevermind is a biofeedback-enhanced terror adventure game that tracks your stress and anxiety levels while you play. To quickly provide some context, in Nevermind, you're a neuroprober, a doctor who explores the minds of psychological trauma patients, solving puzzles to help reconstruct the hidden events at the root of their trauma. The trick is that the more stressed you get, the harder the game becomes. So learning how to manage your stress and anxiety in uncomfortable situations is key. So with that, let's take a quick look at the current version of the game. Nevermind gets harder the more anxious you get. We use biofeedback technology to read the player's stress levels while they play. Currently, we use a Garmin cardio chest strap to measure the player's heart rate variability, which is a really great metric for reading someone's stress and anxiety on the fly. Each area in Nevermind responds differently to the player's stress and anxiety. Here is an example of one part of the level that starts to flood with milk when the player gets stressed out. First and foremost, we wanted to create an engaging game that people would want to play purely for fun. The big picture idea behind Nevermind, though, is that it helps the player learn how to be more mindful of their anxiety and stress reactions, thus making them better equipped to handle everyday anxiety in the real world. As a bit of history, I've been in the game industry for over 10 years, and I went back to USC to refocus my career on serious and positive games. Nevermind was my MFA thesis project, and the proof of concept that you just saw was completed in May 2012. Although I went back to the industry for a year, all of the tremendous support that Nevermind received during that time, not the least of which was being nominated for a Games for Change award last year, encouraged me to return to my dream project to pursue it full-time and take it from a single demo level to a fully releasable state. Looking to the future, our first priority is to continue to build a game that people are really excited to play. We will expand our current single-level experience into a multi-level, fully releasable commercial product. Furthermore, we also plan to work with academics and medical professionals to make select modifications to the commercial game to provide content that can be used within a therapeutic setting. We've seen a ton of excitement from gamers, the game industry, medical professionals, and the media. There's clearly a need and desire for a game like Nevermind to be shared with the world. All we need now are the resources to take the current academic version to a fully releasable commercial version. We have the technology, we have the team, we have the press and market interest, and we have a number of sensor options that drastically reduce the current barrier for entry. Now, all we need is the funding and resources necessary to make our vision for Nevermind a reality. So, given the experience and insight of the panel, we would love to get your feedback and advice on the best means by which we can make this happen. Thank you.
I'm just going to start off. Do you guys think it's dangerous to teach people how to fill up a kitchen with milk? In the real world, that might actually lead to some. No, just kidding. Do we have some questions from the judges? Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, hey, Erin. So one thing that came to mind as we were watching that trailer was both a really positive, exciting thing about this game and also, I would say, your biggest barrier. As I watched some of those creepy, horrifying images, I felt my heart rate increase. I felt myself perspire a little bit. And I also felt the absence of a Garmin, whatever they call it, thing that's actually measuring that biofeedback. So I think the biggest question, one of the categories we're meant to evaluate you guys along is real-world feasibility. Mm-hmm. And I see that as the biggest barrier. You've created some pretty cool horror experiences, and not a single gamer that I know owns a heart rate monitor or anything else to measure biofeedback. So talk a little bit, if you can, about plans to overcome that.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a great question. That is one of the biggest barriers to entry for Nevermind is the fact that you need to own a Garmin cardio chest strap to play this current version. And granted, it's consumer available, you can get it off of Amazon, but it's still, as you said, not every gamer has one. We're actually currently talking to a lot of people with really exciting technology that helps eliminate that barrier to entry. Unfortunately, I can't talk about it too much just yet, but there's a lot of really great research going on where either you can use technology that you do already have or most people already have, or you don't need any additional technology at all. And that's kind of all I can say about that unless you can sneakily add more information.
Yeah, just to allude to it, for example, the Kinect 2.0 and the Xbox One uses camera technology in order to seamlessly gather that heart rate information on the fly. Again, although we can't go into too much detail, similar technology may be in play that would make that a much more seamless experience so that players don't have to go through and purchase $100 worth of hardware just to go through and play Nevermind.
All right, more other questions, other points of view? Judges? Anyone? Yeah, Ken?
Hey guys, can you say a little bit more about sort of the clinical psychology basis for the game?
Sure. Well, when we first developed this version of the game, we wanted it to be something that everyday people could use just to become more mindful of their stress and anxiety. It's amazing how I think a lot of us go through the day and we face stressful situations, but we don't really recognize it. We are taught to ignore it. But when you have a biofeedback sensor hooked up to you that's responding to you in real time, you start to connect that sense of tension in the pit of your stomach with a real physiological reaction. And knowing how to manage that, like, oh gosh, I'm starting to get tensed up, deep breaths and being rewarded for that in the game, you habituate it so that you can practice that exact same technique when you're stuck in traffic or late to a meeting, that kind of stuff. But to bring it to more of a therapeutic setting, there's a lot of potential here to use it with people who might be suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder or high anxiety disorders. And that's something that we're really interested in exploring further. But it's something that, as game designers, we want to partner with someone who has expertise in that area so that we can effectively, responsibly, and respectfully be able to implement content that is helpful to the therapists and the patients.
Have you started working with therapists at all yet? Is that something that you've begun, or?
When we were developing this, we consulted with a number of people in that field, which was immensely helpful, and we plan to continue to do that. We've also talked to a number of researchers across a few academic institutions who are interested in doing studies on this as well, so we can understand better how Nevermind is impacting people and how can we impact people in a positive way even further.
And so that guided your decisions that sort of address some of what Tom asked you about, which is that the therapist said, yes, we want to show nervous-making images and frightening images as part of the stress release experience. I'm just making sure, because it's a weird, interesting idea, but therapy is not always sort of intuitive, right? The unconscious works in mysterious ways, as we all know.
Yeah, we've spoken to a lot of people in that field who are really excited about the possibilities there, but granted, it's very new territory as well, so it's something that both of us agree that we need to collaborate closely on to make sure we're doing it in a way that's not more harmful than helpful. And, a lot depends on the individual playing it and the situation, as with all media and treatments.
Great. Other questions? Yes, Phil.
So Again, I think it's a fascinating concept. In terms of launching the product and your product development schedule, have you considered the therapeutic side of this game as a kind of launch pad for this, maybe starting in the clinical therapeutic space and then moving into more of a consumer-facing launch?
Yeah, it's definitely, that's one path we could take. Nevermind was built on the foundation of being a game first. I'm a game designer. That's sort of my background, so my comfort zone in many ways. But that's also something that we're definitely comfortable considering. Given that we're really excited about those possibilities there too.
All right. Any final questions to interrogate our presenters with? All right. Let's thank you very much. Nevermind.
Thank you.
Excellent. And I will take the magic microphone back. Megan, my cohort in crime here, is going to be collecting the score sheets. By the way, the judges are scoring them in 3 areas. They're looking at the creative innovation, the sort of production feasibility, and also the potential impact for change. So they're really taking a 360 look at all these projects. And with that in mind, let's welcome Rich Metson to the stage for our third game, Off Grid. Rich, welcome. Thank you. Take it away.
Hi, my name is Rich Metson, and I am one of the 2 developers behind this, Off Grid.
Jen, breakfast.
Coming. Hey, Dad.
Hey.
Come on, I'm hungry.
Yep, coming right up.
I got you something. Happy birthday, Pop.
Oh, wow.
I know they're not the fancy ones, but the OS is open source, so you can pretty much load anything onto them.
Yeah.
Oh, and look, I set up all your favorite apps, so if you turn on Bluetooth, they'll come right up.
Bluetooth? Huh. Yes, I see.
Yeah, just push right here.
Oh, okay, I see. Jeez. You mean the world to me, darling.
Freeze! Jen Harmon, you are under arrest. Please do not resist.
There's been a mistake. What are you doing?
Get off of me!
Jen! I'll sort this out.
Stay back, sir. This, sir, is a national security letter. Under the Official Secrets Act, it is hereby a crime to talk or communicate about this incident. Your daughter will be in processing for 90 days. We will call you.
What?
The net we made is being distorted. Power is being taken away from the edge and concentrated in the center. We're going to throw down governments that hurt people, that tear out their fingernails, that destroy them. We're going to carpet bomb the net with freedom.
depth here.
So, Off-Grid is set in a fictional world, or at least it was when we started making it. It's a game about net neutrality, privacy, digital rights, leaks, journalism, corruption. It deals with the fear of technology and internet illiteracy, as you, the player, have to dive into this world you have no understanding of and master it to get your tech-savvy daughter back to safety. I think it's clear from the titles that are now sneaking into the Games for Change awards here, things like Papers, Please, Gone Home, that the commercial titles that are meaningful for the sake of being meaningful, for the sake of being better games, have the side effect of the power to affect change. We want Off-Grid to do just that, to excite and engage, and by proxy, promote a deeper understanding of the real-world themes and mechanics it explores. The time to make this game has arrived on two fronts. Snowden gave the public the vocabulary to talk about these issues, and in the last year, the paid alpha business model has proven to allow developers to create expandable universes and give players early access, allowing small teams to pursue big ideas for as long as that's what their audience wants to see. For Off-Grid, as well as expanding content and mechanics in a paid alpha, we want to continue to parody and pastiche news and current events in this expanding game universe as they come out. We'll be adding Easter eggs and missions that map to new developments, the rise and fall of characters in the internet politics landscape and the press, all of course in our fictional world. We have the core experience built, the characters, the world. We're essentially looking for funding and expertise to help us build the right infrastructure to make the game expandable and ready for an alpha release. That's things like procedural side missions, extra content, level editing tools for the community, a set of alpha build features lined up and ready for monthly release. We are currently looking for around £80,000. That's around $130,000 in real money to build these tools and features and get to our first alpha. For us, this game will be made come rain or shine, and this theme and its relevance really isn't going anywhere. But to have the most impact and be at the front of the pack, we need support in being able to work on the game full-time, and until the alpha release and the community can pick up that support role for us. The community involvement in the development of this game is essential to us. If you, the audience, are excited by what we are doing and want to be a part of it, we've just recently launched the donate page on the website. So please go to www.offgridthegame.com/donate. Tweet about us, share us, back us. I would love it to be able to walk off of the stage in 10 minutes and find our PayPal account has funded us fully. And to the judges, can you help us get this game out there?
Thank you, Rich. Hey, Games for Change people, we did explain to Rich that this is not an episode of Dragon's Den, right? They're not; these guys aren't pulling out their checkbooks and competing to pay you money. No, just kidding. That's Shark Tank for you Americans, the American ripoff of the excellent English show. So, do you guys have questions for Rich?
Yeah, I'll start. You mentioned real-world scenarios and real-world mechanics. I'm curious if you can describe what those mechanics are and how you see those transferring, if you see some sort of takeaways like that, whether this is skill building in that sense or whether this is more thematic.
Yeah, I'll give a couple of examples first and foremost. For instance, the prototype level that you saw some of there, that was essentially, you get asked by the editor of a fictional newspaper called The Apostle to break into his offices in the middle of the night because one of his journalists is being held at Heathrow, a different airport, and you have to get to the laptop before a morning raid and get the data out onto a mesh network that you're building. So your kind of level objectives are often breaking into a building or getting into a particular sensitive area and using the data in there. You connect to a network and see the data that's being left by characters with your Google glasses, but also your kind of mission objectives on a larger scale are connecting a mesh network together. So it's largely thematic, but we're hoping to touch on things like PGP encryption and, like bringing the sort of tools that activists and hackers use into something that's more fun.
Thank you, Mark. Ken, did you have a question?
Tom,
Anyone? Tom, go ahead.
Sure. I just wondering if you could talk a little bit about the balance between sort of the James Bond kind of stuff and, you know, it seems like it's an individual POV. It's a lot of sort of cloak and dagger stuff, adventure, et cetera, versus sort of the real issues, which are maybe a bit more pedestrian for the average citizen in terms of protecting yourself online. Is there any social element where people might collaborate together, act together? I mean, just talk a little bit about the balance there.
Yeah, well, that's the great thing about a paid alpha release is what we'd like to do is put together a set of stretch goals, if you will, that are more long-term, where the community can vote in features they'd like to see, and we map it out. We did want to have sort of an asynchronous multiplayer where you could leave messages in buildings for each other and leave mesh network node parts around, or basically collaborate on a building takedown through single players going into a building that's the power grid and turning the power off so that you can get into a different building while security is down, or things like that. So I mean, in terms of collaboration on that way, we would like to, depending on how well backed we are by our community, take it in a multiplayer direction. In terms of sort of contribution to something like a mesh network wiki or something like that, we did also think about having an in-game wiki, but actually there's a brilliant one that the Internet Society have just put up, and it would be great to have players contributing to the Internet Society's mesh networking wiki.
Just to follow up, I mean, are you, I'm not suggesting I'm worried about this. I mean, it's clearly a game and the gameplay looks very sophisticated and engaging, but I'm sort of imagining sort of Matrix and Fight Club, type endings versus, more realistic, sort of pragmatic awareness, activism, social impact.
Yeah, I mean, well, for me, I think that games for change, first and foremost, need to excite, and engagement happens after that point. We haven't come at it with the angle of specific learning objectives or measurable metrics, because to some extent, just getting players who are, of the 80 million Steam users who don't engage with internet activism, but making something that looks like Metal Gear Solid that they will jump into because it's an amazing stealth game that has a new data mechanic, and exposing them to these issues because they are internet users. For us, that's the sort of soft tactic, the soft sell approach that we'd like to see.
All right, nice. Audience agrees with you, or at least a couple of them out there do. Yeah, Tom.
Hey, Rich. So I have the great pleasure of working with a bunch of folks who currently have their games in early access on our platform, or working through, for one thing, I think what you just mentioned about sort of the soft sell up front, we've seen it work really well with Kerbal Space Program, which I don't know if anybody gets to play that game at home, but
I think that there may be, Kerbal may be part of Games for Change this year, as a matter of fact.
Awesome. But the question for you then is, let's say you're 6 months down the line, your game's on early access, and the direction your customers are telling you to go is quite different, is maybe more along the lines of what Ken just described, that doesn't actually lead you towards any sort of substantial social change. It actually, the community deteriorates. The harder you push on the activism goals that you have in mind, the harder your community pushes back. Number one, is that a fear for you? And number two, if that became a reality, how do you and your team think you'd handle having to develop your game in full sight of your community?
I think that's a very good question. I think you always have to bear that kind of a fear in mind, but trusting your community is one of the best approaches you can have. I mean, one good example of a UK developer who made Uplink, that's Introversion, they engaged with the community very early on, back in 2001, when they were making Uplink a really well-established hacking game. And they got people off of the Linux forums to come and contribute and tell them whether they were, pastiching things in a way that didn't make sense to them, or whether they felt the issues weren't being dealt with properly, and they made a stronger game because of it. So if we get this game into the hands of the people who are passionate about these kinds of things, that will dip into that niche, that should support it going in the right direction. If it didn't, then again, I mean, following a game community and trusting a game community, I think, will always get you the better game in the end anyhow.
All right, thank you, Rich. Let's give him some round of applause. Thank you. As Megan comes out to collect, Itzik, you've been silent so far. You're the venture capitalist on the panel. What did you think about Rich's direct appeal for investment? Was that bold? Was that the right thing to do? Is he going about that the right way? Any thoughts?
I actually was thinking more about whether he's going to talk a little bit about opening the game for the community to contribute to the development of the game. So I thought that the idea was good and exciting, but then wanted to hear more about how the community is actually going to contribute to the social impact of the game.
Interesting, yeah, interesting, good point. So if you're going to be a bear, be a grizzly, right? If you're going to talk about community involvement, how deep can you go? Let's bring out our final pair of presenters, Alan Gershenfeld and Carolina Torres. Let's welcome them to the stage. Thank you very much. And they are here to talk about a game called Our City. And here is your microphone.
Thanks, Eric.
All right, are we ready to go? A little laptop stage surgery here. We just lost some power, but let's get it back in there. All right, the patient
start,
is
Carolina?
stabilized. Take it away.
Hi, my name is Carolina Torres. I'm from Inline Media. I'm the games producer. Sherry Youssef, who's from NetHope, unfortunately she's not here. She's in Amman, stuck with some of our partners, but Alan took on the challenge to come and make the pitch for you.
So Our City is a game funded by USAID. It's a social game built on the Facebook platform designed to foster civic knowledge and civic engagement in the country of Jordan, but on a model that can be scaled internationally. Should we go to the next slide? So there's a massive youth bulge around the world. I mean, just to give you an idea, Europe, 25% of the population is youth, young adult, and unemployed or underemployed. In the Middle East, the numbers are even more dramatic. 70% of the Arab world is under the age of 30. A startling percentage is underemployed or unemployed. That's a huge international challenge. A remarkable percentage of the youth are also on social media. There are some of the numbers in Jordan just on Facebook alone. What's interesting is when we work with our civic engagement experts, and USAID has a deep reservoir of on-the-ground experts in Jordan that are Jordanian, that are working with the youth, many of these youth want to become civically engaged, but there's no path for them to become civically engaged. And that's the core focus, the core need that this product is looking to address. Can you go next slide? The theory of change, when you work with folks like USAID and nonprofits, you really have to define a theory of change. What are we trying to accomplish here? And why do we think games would be good for it? And why do we think this platform would be good? So the core goal, civic knowledge, civic skills, civic passions how do we use this powerful social media to help youth and young adults build vibrant societies? So in this game, which is a game where we look to meet them on their own time, they have to choose to play the game. The idea is, as you build a city, as you build your vibrant Jordanian-specific city, it's not a generic city, it's a Jordanian city, to advance your city, instead of microtransactions where you pay money to advance your gameplay, unlock buildings, unlock missions, you actually do online real-world civic engagement, which then advances and loops back into the game. And we have a network of on-the-ground partners in Jordan that are doing remarkable youth empowerment that youth can engage with. Here's a short video that will describe the game, and then Carolina will go into more detail.
So as Alan was talking about the theory of change, one of the hardest parts for us was deciding which were the core concepts that we wanted to teach. So we worked very closely with USAID, our partners on the ground, and a civic engagement expert, and we came up with 3 pillars: civic knowledge, civic skills, and civic behaviors. Here are some samples of quests that you will see in the game. For example, in civic knowledge, we have Ailea, which is this young entrepreneur that have an idea on a project, and the project, the quest starts from our incubator building. The idea here is that as she progresses on the quest, she gets to understand and map all the stakeholders that are involved, learn about public and private roles, and learn how to reach the process and the tools that she can use to reach out to the mayor. And at the end, what it ends up being is that being involved makes a change in their communities, and in the result is more infrastructure for the city. On civic skills, the challenge here is that the player is faced with deciding to go with a regular healthcare, or if they want to implement a more high-tech technology park. So the player is presented with the 2 options, and the tool that we are presenting here is that they have the option to ask citizens around the city, collect the information. A poll is presented to the player with the results, and based on the results, the player gets the chance to make informed decisions. And an example of the civic behaviors, this one is actually inspired by a real-world event that is happening in Jordan. There's a white country cleanup campaign, and in the game, what the player experiences is this cleanup campaign. You have tasks and missions that you have to complete, but what is interesting about this one is that at the end of the mission, we are directing players to get involved directly with the NGO to sign up for a cleanup, and if the player gets and participate in the real-world cleanup, come back to the game, enter a serial call number, and then unlock premium content. Another way to have a micro-engagement in the game.
I think we'll maybe show a short video.
John? Yeah. Okay. We're going to show just a short video on the pre-alpha.
This is a pre-alpha build.
Oh, sorry. So here you can see basic components of a city builder game. You're going around the city asking for citizens' opinions. I think it's playing a little bit slow. Placing buildings, we leverage some of the basic components of, I don't know what's going on, sorry. We're leveraging some of the basic components of commercial games. Quests, steps, and here's an example of one of the micro-engagements from one of the NGOs that we'll use to, as a micro-engagement example, at the end of a quest.
So just to wrap up, this is we're going to pilot it this fall. We're funded for a 3-month pilot. What we're looking for is funding to actually extend the pilot for another 6 months, because that's where we believe we're going to really be able to optimize the learnings, and we'll have all the infrastructure, the technology, and the partnerships in place. That could be anywhere from $60,000 to $120,000, depending on how much content we want to put in based on the feedback that we're getting. And we also believe this is a platform, a methodology that we could reuse for other impact goals, from urban farming to workforce development. We believe that, that once the investment goes into this, it would be a shame not to leverage it for other goals.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Carolina and Alan. All right. Questions, thoughts from the judges? Anyone have anything they want to ask? Yeah, Michelle, take it away.
I'm just curious. I don't know if there's, oh yeah, okay. I'm just curious if you're envisioning that the game is going to be used in some sort of moderated, in terms, because you mentioned the partners a lot. So I'm just kind of curious, what's the context in which people are going to be engaging with the game and playing the game?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, it is not designed for a moderated experience. It really is designed as a consumer experience. Jordan's a relatively small country. We believe we can get very strong exposure for the awareness of the project. The game has to be fun enough that they want to engage with it and invite their friends to engage with it. But it is definitely meeting them where they are. Once they get in the game, they will be exposed to the NGO partners and the opportunities. So it is very much consumer-facing versus a moderated learning environment. But a lot of thought has gone into the learning goals, obviously, and the opportunities to apply those learning goals online and in the real world.
Another question? One of our judges, comments? Tom, go ahead.
So the gamer in me, just looking at some of the screenshots and the brief stuff that you guys showed, I would have guessed that a lot of the in-game mechanics are pointed at gamers who were 16 and under, although a lot of the individuals portrayed in the game and a lot of the themes and the real-world actions, I would assume, would be taken by people 16 and over. Who are you making the game for, and are you being very conscious to reflect that in the game itself?
So our target audience is 15 to 24, and we work in country. We did a lot of focus groups, and just to try to get into their heads what they really get them excited, what they want to see in the game. And they always keep telling us they want to see the city reflect. They want to see issues that they live in their daily lives. And we work with our partners just to try to reflect that and localize the content in the game.
Yeah, it was an interesting question. We've done a lot of focus groups, and the art is not a place that we would have gone, but it's actually, the art house is actually in Jordan creating the characters, and they are working with a focus group. So it's a heightened reality that's different than we would have expected, and it's not a sort of generic character set. It really is kind of a country-specific and a region-specific. So it's a very interesting experience.
It's reassuring that you've done the research and that you're feeling like this is the right path, because looking at it, my intuition would have said otherwise, so it's good that you guys have already done the digging.
Greg?
Actually, my question was about focus groups as well, so.
Okay, is that it? Comments, questions from our judges? All right, thank you very much. Thank you. Alan, Carolina. While our judges are finishing their final tabulation, Megan is going to come out. Let's have all of our presenters come up on stage. Everybody, all 4 teams, bring them out. Yes. I'd like to line you guys up right here. While Megan is going to furiously finish the final tabulations, that's okay. She has a whole team of mathematics experts backstage helping her with this task. Yeah, no, not really. So what's going to happen is that Megan is tabulating the scores. Like I said, the judges have been grading each of them on the creative innovation, how interesting it is from a design and player experience point of view, the production feasibility. In other words, can this team really build this? Do they know about marketing and distribution? Is it going to make it successfully to its audience? And lastly, the potential for impact. Can this actually have a real sense of change for their target audience in the way that they intend? So all of those scores are going to be tabulated. Now, originally, when we had this event, we were going to say, well, the winner of this is going to get a lunch date with the judge of their choice, right? We have this amazing group of judges here on stage. But what we decided was that we're going to give everybody lunch dates. So we're going to, so yes, that's right. Lunch dates for everyone. That's on this side of the stage. The winner is going to get to pick their favorite judge first, the one that they think might help them out the most in terms of what their current needs are, and we'll go down the row. So yes, that means half of the judges won't be picked. So we're sort of turning the tables a little bit, right? So you get to judge them, and then they get to judge you guys, and everybody gets a little bit humiliated. So who's not having fun? That's going to happen after we pick up the scores. Now, I just want to reintroduce the judges as a way of thanking them to the audience, and also as a way of reminding you guys who's up on stage. And as I go across, I want you to think about who's your first, second, third choice, so that you have in mind once we get the scores back out on stage, who you're going to select. So I'm going to go here left to right, and I'm just going to use my guide because I am name challenged, and unlike most people, and just want to make sure I get this right. So we have Tom from Valve. Tom, thank you very much for being here. So Valve. On Tom's left is Mark from the National Endowment for the Humanities. Thank you, Mark. And Ken from Zynga.org. followed by Michelle, who is the former co-president of the Games for Change. Thank you, Michelle. So nice to have you back this year. Greg from the Robin Hood Foundation. Thank you. And Phil, almost at the end now, from BAFTA LA. Phil, thank you for coming all the way. And Itzik, an angel investor who can, thank you, Itzik, for coming. He's always very understated guy, right? Hardly moving when I'm introducing him. So in just a few moments, I think Megan is going to be rejoining us on stage. Right, Megan? Is that I think we might be actually slightly over on this session. So hopefully she'll be joining us at any minute. Her team of mathematicians is working furiously. And while we're waiting for them, any general comments? Is there anything that came out of the presentations as a whole? Any trends that you guys are noticing as judges that you want to think about or comment on from all the presenters? What are some of the challenges that these folks are facing? Ken?
Maybe Michelle, since you've been involved with Games for Change for many years, maybe you could comment on what you're seeing this year relative to other years. In just my 2 years, I see an amazing leap forward in creativity and execution and thoughtfulness in terms of the game design.
Great question. Yeah, Michelle.
I thought the presentations were all great, actually. Just in terms of the polish, the it was interesting. It was interesting to see what you were presenting in terms of how you articulated the projects themselves, and they ranged in terms of your points of view, of how you were, so you were very much able to get across your theories about what equals a game for change, which I thought was great. You kind of imbued your presentation with that. So I thought they were great.
Any other thoughts or comments? What about, go ahead, Tom. Mark?
I was Greg at one point too, so thanks.
Go ahead, Mark.
No, I just want to say that, one thing that I've noticed here too, and when Games for Change first started, it was very much kind of a FUBU model, a for us, by us kind of model. And it's really, really encouraging to see everyone thinking about audience from the beginning and building that in from the outset, because that's the key. And whether you allow that audience in down the line is also, I think something that you're all grappling with and to what degrees. But it's great to see that shift taking place already, and it's such a scale.
Thank you. Phil? Okay. Phil, go ahead. Let's have your final comment, then we're gonna here you go. Then we're gonna take it away. Number 8.
Does it work? No, there we go. Well, I just want to say, as a kind of Games for Change virgin, it was quite impressive to me to see the diversity of what was up and presented. So it's quite inspiring to see that there's this breadth of what makes a Games for Change. So I'm excited.
All right, thank you very much. And now we're ready to announce our winners. So we're going to go down the row. We're going to let the winner pick their judge. When if your name is called, if you're lucky enough to be picked first for the softball team, then you'll stand up and go stand by the presenters, so that then we'll know who's left. So let's say congratulations to our winners. Nevermind. Great job. And who's your lunch date companion?
So this is the toughest reward ever, because I would love to get lunch with everyone. You each bring such unique things to the table.
All right, very diplomatic, yes. All right, let's move it forward. Yes, we have limited time.
All that being said, I'd love to get lunch with Tom, just because we exchanged emails after last year's G4C14.
All right, Tom, Valve, yes. Come on up. And in second place, I have to say, this was extremely close. I think that's what kept Megan so busy backstage. Our city, congratulations, second place. And who would you guys like to select?
I think we would like to go with
Ken, come on up. Ken from Zynga.org. All right, remember, everyone is a winner here, at least on this side of the stage, right? Okay, off grid. You're next, Mark. Let's hear it. Who do you want to have lunch with?
I'm going to embarrass myself and not pronounce his name properly, but Itzik?
Itzik, yes, Itzik. Oh, come back on stage. And finally, CyberRun. CyberRun?
We'll take Michelle.
Michelle! All right. And these are my lunch dates for tomorrow. Thanks, guys, very much. Let's thank our judges. Let's thank our presenters. Thank you guys very much. Great job, everybody. All right, now let's get the hell off stage so that the next session can start. Thanks, everybody.